Fantastic. Okay, so we now have Trimble Perspective open, and if I can just show you the setup of the room that I have. Excellent. Hi everybody. So this is the X7. We're set up on the Gitzo tripod. We've got that unit out of the box. My laptop's following me. There we go. Okay, we're set up on the tripod. I'm running the cable at the moment. Normally we'd be connected via Wi-Fi to a T10, but I need my Wi-Fi to be talking to you all today. So that's the unit set up. I'm just in a little small meeting room. When I've set this unit up, it's got a built-in level compensator. So I've just set the Gitzo tripod up to eyeball level. So within plus or minus 5 degrees, that's going to self-compensate, and we don't need to be too pedantic about how we set that up, which is quite helpful for us in moving quickly through a room or building a job. Alrighty. So, perspective. Here we are. No data in it just yet. I'm connected to my unit. I can determine what sort of scan settings I want to do. So, like I said, I'm in quite a small room. Okay, I've got a 2-minute, a 4-minute, a 7 and a 15-minute option. The 2-minute density will be perfect for me here, 10 mil at 10 meters thereabouts, and I've got my photos on. So that's started up there now for me. And the first thing that you'll notice is the scanner does an initialization. So up to 25 seconds, this is a self-calibration routine. And while we're still waiting for the white paper to tell you exactly what's in that, if I maneuver my camera enough, you would see there is a sensor port built in at the base of the unit. So we do know that the EDM is actually firing into that and checking its calibration, amongst other things that we'd expect, temperature and pressure and those sorts of things. Once that's finished, Perspective will tell me that it's going to start scanning. So it's a dual face scanner, so I will be in the way here, but otherwise we'll be going around. Out of this 2.5 minutes time that was quoted to us, we'll call that 30 seconds of calibration, then a minute of scanning, and then a minute of photos. So as soon as the scan itself is done, that's going to download back to the device that we're operating off, here via cable, but normally via Wi-Fi, which is nice and quick, and that'll buffer up into our screen very shortly. Fantastic. So we can see in the top right there, downloading scan. It's our little notification window, tell us what's happening. So a small scan, obviously very quick. Displaying the points. Okay, we're going to receive a preview of the points. So we will see about 2 million points per scan station. You've just noticed it's auto-righted, so it's picked an axis along the project and just straighten that up for us, a little bit more sensible to display. Okay, and then I can start to actually come in and assess that. I'm in the 2D view at the moment, but I might want to be in 3D and get a bit better understanding of what I'm doing, so you guys can see what exactly is going on. I'm using a height limiting tool to take the ceiling off. Okay, and you probably wouldn't have heard it through my headphones, but the unit's beeped at us and it's got some green lights on it telling us that it's finished its scan. We can see down on the screen as well, it's ready to start a scan again. So I'll just move that across a little bit. Again, the floor's flat. My self-compensating unit I don't need to change anything on the tripod there. Flat floor, it was set up, it'll be fine to go again. I'll just turn the images off here so we move to, no, we've got time. Fantastic. So not as much to see with a single scan yet. Okay, this is our 3D view. We can see our occluded circle below the unit itself. There's also a 600mm minimum range, so if part of me gets cut off there, that's what that will be. All right, to give you sort of a different understanding of my setup today, here's the little meeting room, my station, and there's the door we'd be going through if we were going to do a few more scans. And I've just moved the unit a little bit further towards this corner. Got a number of the standard sorts of viewing tools that you would expect to be able to have. Top, left, right, zoom to extents, these sorts of things. We can hide and view only certain numbers of stations, so when we do get a larger project, we can start to say, well, I'm only interested in the last 4, the few that I've done in this room at this point in time, so I can just view that specific number. Similarly, we've got more detailed point cloud viewing tools. We can change the size. I also have a bit of a see inside sort of filter, so that'll take away that wall obstructing there, so I can see a little bit better what's going on. And as I rotate around, that'll adjust that on the fly. Station labels and markers and things like that. So now we're getting our second scan come in, so we see that the scan itself has finished. The images are being captured while it's doing that, so we're doing 2 things at once, which is nice and efficient. The software's placing the scan in there, and in the top right it's doing auto registration. So one of the enabling features of that auto registration is that there is an IMU in the device, which gives it a pretty good understanding of how far it's moved and how it's rotated. And that's what's giving quite a bit of assistance to the cloud-to-cloud registration that's happening and allowing it to happen nice and quickly like I just did there. All right, and that scan is finished as well. So I'll move across for one more while I talk about this bit. So I've just moved it off, out of the view now, but still in the same room. Press go again there. Fantastic. So if I'd been paying attention, I would have had a little pop-up here to tell me about my registration. So this says from station 2 to 1, 1 mil of error, very, very high overlap and good consistency. The best example of that being things that have moved within the same scene. So often when there's people there, we can't sit particularly still, so we'll introduce a little bit of movement there. So numerically that looks great, but also just having a bit of a logic check. The blue and green should fit very flushly against each other. If I use this height limiter again to just look at a specific slice and bump the point size up in case it's a little bit small coming through Skype. Okay, all laid on top of each other quite nicely. So I'm confident that that's registered well, and it's given me a pretty accurate representation. Excellent. So some of and if we just look at a particular station, some of the point colorization options I wanted to show. I'm in scan color at the moment, which is just a randomly assigned set of colors as we progress through our number of stations. Grayscaled intensity, okay, color-coded intensity. All right, carpeted floor, not expecting a great return out of that one. We can do a color-coded elevation, don't love that one myself. We've got true color in here. So a good one to note here, and this is scan 3 coming in while I talk, we don't live colorize, okay, because it's a little bit computationally intensive. It slows us down a touch, but we certainly can ask it to do a colorization. So as soon as this registration finishes, I'll go and do that and just make sure that looks good. Yeah, again, a mill, very high overlap, and good consistency. So if I take us back to the scan color, get rid of some of this noise. Okay, fits quite well, or very well. In my station menu up here, I'm just going to go back and say I'd like to colorize just a specific station. I won't do the panoramas right now, just for the sake of time. So that's going to colorize there for us and not take too long. I'll be able to show that shortly. One of the features I really like to show in Perspective is this unmeasured points view. So within the station-based view, we can measured points mode, and red is where we haven't got a return from the scanner. So black is okay up here. So the lights are, and the frosting on the glass, it's actually got a return there. The keypad on my laptop hasn't got, the side of my mouse it hasn't got. Not too much, you know, some of the very strange angles and holes in the black plastic chairs there, but I'm not missing essential data, which is really nice to know. The colorization's finished now. So this is station 1, colorized. I have some different light balance options. So if I am moving indoor, outdoor, you know, I may need to deal with that a little bit more diligently, but here I've just left it on automatic and it's done a pretty reasonable job, I think. Couldn't keep my head still there. So this is, you know, a good thing to check at the start of a project, just to make sure we're happy with the sorts of settings we used. Start to build that understanding of, okay, well, if I'm walking through it and I go, oh, this room's really dark and this room's really light, you know, what do I need to do with the scanner to address that? We do have the option to, in our settings, increase the number of photos that we take. Only 15, we can build that up to 30. That's going to give us better resolution and reduced angle coverage, which will improve our white balance essentially. Okay, so that's our 3 stations. Couple very quick other features to note. We've got some annotation tools. So this is basically a great way for us to make ourselves some field notes. Call this power box. I was operating with a tablet. I can take the photo using the camera and that'll be assigned to that point. And that way when I transfer this data out, I can actually retain that as a spatially correct point, which is pretty handy. I can also label and group scans together. So if I'm moving through a building, I can, while I'm in meeting room 5, I think I'm in, I can put a label on that. So back at the office end, I can quickly turn on and off the different things that I want to view. I've got basic measurement tools, notifications I had a look at before. That's the very overall gist of Perspective. When we are finished or happy with what we've done so far, we might do a refinement. So this will be very, very quick. Normally each scan is a single cloud to cloud. I went 3 to 2, 2 to 1. I also want to check what 3 to 1 will do. Now, very, very quick, obviously, because there's only one more to do. Okay, and Skype looks like it's showing a report in front of me here. This is our registration report. 3 stations, 1 mil error, very high overlap, and my specific station to station summary there. The sort of thing that we used to only really get at the office end. You check and be confident about that now. And when I'm done, I can colorize the remaining stations and export that out there. Okay, pretty important to note, I think. We've got some Trimble formats, okay, that feed into Business Center or RealWorks. They will utilize those annotations and labels. But if we're not down a Trimble path, we've got E57 gridded or LAS or a number of other formats that will be registered and colorized. So pretty powerful straight out of the field tablet. Excellent. All right, I'll pause there. to hand over to Fraser. Otherwise, Fraser, I might jump in and show everybody the manual registration that we have in both softwares.
Yeah, feel free.
Excellent. Alrighty, so back in perspective briefly, we have had some successful auto registrations. So we saw that from the notification that popped up before and said, great, well, I've got these results. And also from visually assessing it, when we took the wall slice, we saw that, yeah, we're pretty happy with it. It makes sense. What and it doesn't. So typically that means we've gone a little bit too far. We don't have enough overlap to our previous scan station, and the software doesn't have enough information to categorically state that it's happy. All right. If that had come up as a failure, we'd receive a notification. Alternatively, we can always go into the individual station itself, okay, and play with our registration. So we've got two ways to do this. Here I'll just be breaking the link because it is already registered. So from station 3 to station 2, station 3 is now my loose moving scan, and I can move and rotate that as I need to make it fit. Assuming it was in the wrong setup, I might actually want to try and make it work correctly. Okay, very, very simple in a regular room like this with one door. We really do know what's happening, all my features on the ceiling. You can certainly get a little bit more complex in a plant environment or a complex building. So if this isn't enough information for you, I find the split view to be really powerful. So here we get the station view of station 3 and 2, or whichever ones we're dealing with, and we're looking to pick common points. Okay, so I might work off this lockbox type thing here, and it's just asking for 2. Okay, as opposed to some office software where we may want more. Because we're not actually forcing a full registration with this technique, we're just giving it a guide to still do a cloud to cloud. So you can see there it's essentially overset in the correct position, but it's actually still now going to go and do the cloud to cloud analysis for this one and hopefully get the same result we had before, which is sub-mil, yeah, 90%, very good. So that's quite quick. When we are scanning through our complex environment, if we found that our registration didn't succeed, we've sort of got 2 options. One is we can try this manual technique. Very quickly we'll know, do we have enough information or not? If something like this still doesn't work for us, that might be a prompt for us to quickly go and put another scan station in. Okay. Within both software, we have the option to determine what station we should register. So if I've left this room, okay, I'm off working over outside now, and then I come back and I go, oh, I didn't pick this up, the color's not great, this, that, whatever I need to come back for. From my next scan, I can say to it, hey, I actually want you to register to this specific scan. So if I registered to station 1 back in here. So a pretty quick way for us to go back and fill in where needed without disrupting our workflow too much. Want me to share, Fraser?
Yeah. I'll wait for it to import, and then I think maybe having Skype and it might be a bit much for it.
Too many things at once. Understood. All right. While we wait, let's see what else we can find in perspective. I didn't show all of the settings before, but they're not an extensive list, which is quite nice. Here we can determine and I mentioned it, but didn't show it, the specific number of scan stations that we want to view. So when we are looking at a large project, we can go, right, well, it's all a little bit much. I just want to view only that number that I just set. Here, that's 2. and I can determine, okay, well, if I've got 100 scans, what is my two references of my last two? Okay, in this case, I can pick the piece of the that we care about. And FieldLink has the same sorts of tools, different setup to it, but we can toggle on and off specific stations that we want to have. One other concept that both softwares have, they term it differently. In Perspective, it's a registration set, okay, and I believe it's groups in FieldLink.
Yes, it's that called groups, group leaders.
Sure. So in FieldLink, that group often relates to having had that registration, that georeferencing, sorry, that Fraser showed with the laser. But essentially, it's a group of scans that have all been registered successfully together. If I had my closed door here, moved the scanner into the meeting room adjacent and started scanning, there would be no overlap. It wouldn't work, can't. So it would have a second registration set or group that we can attack individually. What we might do is we might see that scan or scans or groups that didn't register and decide that we want to link them together. Then I might be able to put hands in, open the door, move through the doorway, outside, into the next room, into the doorway. And then I could come in to my specific station. So let's say I went 4 outside, 5, 6 into the next one. Okay. 5, 6 should all link together. And I could manually say, right, well, from 4, I want you to link to this specific station and go and do that manual registration again. That would put everything then in the same registration set or group. There may be times though, and well, we've thought of 1 or 2 examples, a multi-story construction site, no internal stairs yet. You're accessing via a site lift. It's really not going to be practical to through and capture the whole workflow. So you will have 2 groups that can't be registered, and that's what it is. The exports will hold those as separate groups, and we'll be able to then deal with that further in the office side if we need to. And to hand over to Fraser.
Hi, so we're just going to get started by creating some points. So I've already pre-created a couple of limit boxes just because my model is 3D. Just a heads up, you don't have to have a 3D model for this. You could use, you could lay out onto just a series of points, or you could lay out onto a 2D plan. So I start, I go intersections, I click the point, I get rid of the one I don't want. I'll just call these set out points, maybe set out 1, and I'll put them in a layer called set out points. I could also just click that layer, but we're pretending to start from scratch here. So I create, and I need 3 points to do a complete resection, but I need at least 2, but more is always encouraged. So I'll simply select that and move on. And you always want to go for sort of that Mercedes-Benz shape. As you can see here, this is the room I'll be working in. It should look familiar as it's the same as the model. And what we're hoping to do is sort of scan and put some of this, some of the differences, the furniture, the tables, the gym equipment, and sort of load that so we can see it into the model. We'll just connect. I'm using a cable because I have to, because obviously with Skype we have to have this available, but this could just as easily be. So we'll just go device, setup. Now that we're connected, you can see that by the green light. And with our flashing blue lights, it means our instrument is leveling. Now that it's done that, we will drive using our sliders to get to that corner that we've selected down there. So we can see our laser sliding across the wall. Now we just want to bring it down. And I'll just switch to the tortoise just so it goes nice and slow. This is better for those fine movements. Probably can't see it at the level we're zoomed in at the moment. And I'll just hit shoot. And of course, as always, the blue flashing lights means that the machine is busy and we're not to interrupt it. In this case, it is busy measuring. So I'll select another point, always tick show residuals, and I'll drive my way to there in a similar way. So I'll start by going up the wall, then across to the corner, the same corner that we've selected on the model. Just switch to the Revit just so I can get a bit more speed across here. I understand it's hard to see because of the window. I probably should have shut that window. And I'll just shoot. As you can see here, we do have it. It is saying that it is ready to set within 22 mils, which probably wouldn't be acceptable in the real world, but it would be acceptable in this case. But you know, since this is a training exercise, we're probably going to do best practice, so we're going to do at least 3 points. And you know, we want a good spread. I like to think of it like a Mercedes-Benz symbol with the scanner in the middle. So I'll just navigate my way over there. Apologies if the video and the screen capture aren't quite in sync. And I'll measure that, but depending on the accuracy we get out of this, we'd be happy with that. We should sort of always be aiming for something in the sort of 5 mil range in the real world using survey control. Okay, this is definitely not good enough, so what we'll do is we'll add a 4th point and we'll probably just ignore the other point. Oh, I overshot it a bit there. That's all right, we'll just go back. There we go. In this case, we won't be going for 5 mils because it's sort of a rough model. It's not a sort of true accurate model. What I'll do is I'll just see if removing that original problem point by just selecting it and going exclude point, I'll see if that can improve the results a bit. Yeah, so 25 mils. Still not great, but for the conditions we're working in, it's, I guess, acceptable for now. So now that we're set up in the model, and we can see our little scan symbol, we'll go collect, and we might change some settings up first. So very similar to Perspective, we choose fast photos, quick scan, and these will save to the setting for a later use. And I'll just hit start, and away the scanner goes. Blue lights mean it's busy. And just while that's running, I'll load up an extra 2 scans that I've done previously. So while that's collecting, at 50%, once it gets to 50%, it'll start to take photos and transfer the scan across. Then once it gets to 100%, it's completed. I'll just take the time to explain how, I guess, FieldLink sort of differs. We expect to have it in the hands of people who don't really have a lot of field processing software or experience, so would rather go for a full capture in the field. So, you know, where the item is geo-referenced and stitched together in the field, rather than relying on software to clean up the data in post. The data is pretty limited in what you can do with the data, but you know, for basic deliverables for say an architect, civil engineer, or project manager, it's fine. And now that the scan's completed, past 50%, it'll just be importing across. This can take a while for the first scan. So I'll just fast forward to where we've had 3 scans completed and they've all stitched together nicely automatically. And here we can see our furniture is lobbed in inside the model. We can see that the walls are nice and happily overlaid. And it's all very good. And we can take measurements, you know, just a basic one from something in the point cloud to something in the model, just to see what our clearance is to the ceiling. And once we're happy with what we've got, you know, nice and colorized, these, you'll recognize those views from the perspective side of things. They're the same ones, where you can have a look at our scan. It's rotated to the model, and I'll be exporting that as a non-gridded E57. I'll just override the one we did in our test run. And that should just go into our export folder. Where we can pick it up, put it on a USB stick, and take it over to our drafting PC, or perhaps even draft it on the T10. Sweet, so if anyone has any questions, I'll start taking those now.
So guys, yeah, just a very brief overview of the 2 softwares. As Fraser suggested, we are operating off the same X7, so the instrument's exactly the same. The software is more about how you need to use it, what your whole workflow looks like. So we've had people approach this in a range of different ways. Some know that the option for georeferencing with that laser in a building's environment, having that model, that's for them. Perhaps in the survey space where we want to be operating on a gridded coordinate system, we're going to be georeferencing against some other control data. That's going to need to happen in an office software, perhaps Business Center or RealWorks, and so that might be the workflow that we want to follow there.
And so, John, to answer your question, you need FieldLink 5.3 and upward. You also need the scan module, which is an additional module that gets slapped onto your FieldLink, which opens up the scan tab. It is very much, if you a typical driver of FieldLink, if you have a set-out machine, then yes, it's very much the same hardware and software, just with one additional module.
Probably from the training perspective, I'd add, both of these softwares are quite intuitive to pick up. We've had a number of customers using or being sent X7s lately to have a trial with and have a look at, get an understanding of. Often we've gone to schedule some time to run something like this with them, and they tell us that they've actually picked that up already and they've had a pretty good go. And we're just sort of pointing out a few of those specific benefits and features that we've shown today. It is either of them are quite powerful field softwares in that they introduce some of the sort of the visualization and inspection that we probably only, in the Trimble suite at least, only used to get at the office end. One of the benefits of the X7 scanner is with either software is that we really sort of know what data we've got before we leave the site. A, from a visual inspection, B, from that refinement report as well.
Yes, with the training, obviously if you're going to scan a fresh site in FieldLink, it's very much a turn the thing on, press the scan button until you've completed what you want. And if you're coming from a FieldLink background, perhaps you've used it to set out fire line equipment, then you'd already be in the know of how to do the more complicated processes, such as setting out off-grid marks and corners of a core and that sort of thing.
Excellent. Well, there wasn't too much else I felt like we needed to show. So if nobody has any more questions, that's our contact details up there on the screen. We will be publishing this webinar in a week or so when they go up, and we encourage you to keep looking at the 2 or 3 that we're running each day and that Trimble and our other partners are helping us run. So thanks for attending, and do reach out with any, there's a message coming in here. Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, feel free to contact anytime.
Cheers, guys. Have a good day.